Hi, it's me again. Um, if you've been following this video series I just did, beginning of chapter 2, you'll know how excited I am because I found out that my picture actually does show up in these videos, even though I was rambling a little bit about that last time. And then I looked at my picture in the video and realized I'm sitting here in a t-shirt because that's normally how I record, and you're thinking, what's the big deal, Mike? You're sitting in your apartment with a t-shirt. What's so special about that? All of a sudden, I don't feel so special. Nonetheless, we are now on chapter 2.3, which is where we're going to talk about the purposes of definitions. Different definitions are constructed for different reasons, and so we want to look at these and be able to distinguish between them. All right? First, in order to do this, we want to talk about the parts of a definition. And a definition actually has two parts. The first part is the definiendum, which is the word that we're going to define. Then we have the definiens, which are the words that do the defining. So if we're looking up a term in a dictionary or a word in a dictionary, we would look up the definiendum, and what we read would be the definiens. Okay? Fun words that we can use that probably we will be using in discussion a lot, but it's just good to know these things. All right, now let's look at the definitional purposes, the reasons we might do a definition. All right, they are stipulative, lexical, precising, theoretical, and I know I need to quit playing with the animation, but I couldn't help myself, and persuasive. And so we're going to talk about each of these separately. And your goal is to be able to look at a definition and define or determine which one of these it is. So let's start with stipulative. A stipulative definition is a definition that defines a word for the first time. All right? We have something, we don't have a word for it, so we just make up a word. All right? It's arbitrary. There's no right or wrong because we're just making up the word. So let's say I have my glasses here, and I want to talk about these rubber things at the end of the glasses. Now I'm sure they have a name, but I don't know what they are, so I'm going to call them glorks. All right? I've just stipulated. The glork is the plastic thing at the end of the glasses that goes around your ear. All right. It's a horrible name. It sounds like something out of Star Trek. Anyway, but it's arbitrary. You can't say, well, no, that's not what a glork is, because I just made it up. All right. Here's an example of what used to be a stipulative definition. Obviously, it's become part of our lexicon, and I'll talk about that when I get to the next type of definition. But the millennial generation, the group of people born between 1980 and 2000. All right, what we had was a group of people. They listened to rap music. They were kind of young, they had attitudes, and we needed to call them something, probably for marketing purposes, or at least so that we could go to workshops and try to understand what they are. If you're one of them, I mean no disrespect. They call my generation all sorts of things. But anyway, so they labeled this group of people the millennial generation. All right, and so now we actually talk about the millennial generation, but when they first made it up, it was a stipulative definition. All right, the next kind is lexical definition. Now, millennial generation actually became lexical definition. Every once in a while, you'll read that the Oxford English Dictionary has added a new word. All right, that means we have a new lexical definition. Something that was once a stipulative definition has become lexical. So lexical definition reports the meaning the word already has. And a lexical definition can be correct or incorrect. It's the dictionary definition. That's what you look up in a dictionary or a lexicon. I know, horrible. Anyway, but it is the dictionary definition. Here's an example. A wombat is an Austrian, I'm sorry, it's not Austrian, it's Australian. It is an Australian marsupial resembling a small bear. Okay? I looked this up in the dictionary. It's just, this is what a wombat is. Now, lexical definitions can have problems. And so let's talk about a couple of these. First of all, a lexical definition can be vague. Like, let's say we talk about someone being rich, which rich means having much money or great possessions. All right? What does that mean? If you don't have a lot of money, somebody could be very rich to you, whereas to somebody who makes a lot of money, they're not particularly rich. Somebody who's rich, say, in the context, doesn't really have a very precise meaning. It can also be ambiguous, right? Rich means containing desirable, nutritious, or fattening ingredients. All right? So if we say that somebody's rich, Are we saying that they have a lot of money, or are we saying that they are fattening if you eat them? Okay, let's get off the cannibalism thing. But you get the point, right? Rich could mean two different things. Because of this, what we have to do is refine our lexical definitions. The next definition comes because lexical definitions sometimes aren't enough. And this is why we have precising definitions. What a precising definition does is it reduces the vagueness of a word. It defines a word that is vague and makes it more precise. It also applies that word to a particular context, okay? So if we're defining a word using a precising definition, we're not saying this is what this word means all the time. But the problem is what the word means all the time is very vague, and so for our particular purposes, we need to define it more precisely. So a precising definition is applied to a particular context. So a lot of times you'll see for the purposes of in a precising definition. Examples. For the purposes of this study, there, it stopped. For the purposes of this study, someone is rich if they own over $1 million in assets or have an annual income over $100,000. All right, and I might be obscuring this next one, but for the purposes of this diet program, a food is rich if it contains more than 50 calories per ounce. All right, in both of these cases, what we're doing is taking a word that's relatively vague and we're making it more precise, and we're doing it for a particular purpose, for a study, for a diet program, for an argument, whatever it is. The next definition we have is a theoretical one. This is difficult, but what a theoretical definition does that a lexical definition generally doesn't do is it refers to a theory. And generally it's done to give us some kind of insight or define it in relation to a particular theoretical perspective. Okay, so it's going to suggest a theory regarding that term. So for example, if any of you read The Republic, Thrasymachus says that justice is the interest of the stronger. Now that's not the lexical definition of justice, but what he's trying to do is say, look, the people who have the power make the rules, so what justice really is the interest of the stronger. Similarly, the definition light is a set of electromagnetic particles in motion. We know what light is. This is stuff that comes out of a light bulb. That's not a very good definition, but you know what I mean. When we start to talk about light as a series of electromagnetic particles, we're talking about a specific theory regarding light, which is that light is particles. And we know that there's the particle theory and the wave theory, so this is suggesting a theoretical insight. And so theoretical definitions don't just occur when we're talking about philosophy, but they also occur when we're relating something to scientific theory. And finally, we have persuasive definitions. Persuasive definitions are designed to give us an attitude toward that which is being defined, either a positive or negative. And so here we have two definitions of logic, and again, I'm sure my head is obscuring one of them, but indulge me. Example 1. Logic is the study of how to think properly and thereby become a better human being. Obviously, this is designed to make us think well of logic. Definition number 2. Logic is the art of reducing everything to its most boring component. Now, we know that's not what logic is, but some people might define it that way. That, of course, gives us a negative affect towards the definition. All right? And so, this is another reason we define things. Sometimes we define things to persuade people. All right? So, stipulative, lexical, precising, theoretical, and persuasive techniques are used to define things. In the next video, we're going to look at different ways. These different techniques were actually different purposes for defining. Now we're going to look at different ways that we define things, and that will be chapter 2.4. Oh, it was still going. Let's try this one more time.